Jensen Button. Some drivers read telemetry. Button read clouds. He didn't need radar updates or race engineer warnings to predict when the next rain cell would hit. He just felt it through the steering wheel, the noise of the tires, and the tone of grip under his fingertips. To everyone else, the weather was unpredictable. To Jensen, it was communication. His driving style was the key. A silky, no-snap rhythm. No jerks, no scrubbing, no panicked throttle blips. That smoothness meant his tires stayed alive longer in changing conditions. He could sense the surface drying before anyone else dared switch to slicks. It's why Canada 2011 remains one of the greatest recoveries in F1 history. He went from 21st place through chaos, penalties, collisions, and 5 tire changes. Yet his lap times kept falling as the rain faded. When Vettel slid wide on the final lap, Button didn't need luck. He had been preparing for that dry line 20 minutes earlier. Teammates said he had zero panic mode. His car control wasn't spectacular in a highlight reel sense. It was invisible, delicate, and almost meditative. Engineers trusted his feedback over weather radars because he'd feel a storm minutes before the clouds broke. When others froze under mixed conditions, Jensen was at peace. The world slowed for him when the rain started, and that's what made his weirdest strength so alien. He didn't master chaos. He found calm inside it. Kimi Räikkönen. Every driver fears the outlap. The tires are cold, the car is twitchy, and the rear grip doesn't exist. Kimi Räikkönen didn't just survive those laps. He attacked them like they were mid-race. Where others spent 2 laps building temperature, Kimi would nail the perfect line immediately, sliding just enough to generate heat without losing control. It looked reckless to outsiders. A man turning into corners at full commitment with no visible grip. But telemetry told a different story. His throttle control was impossibly smooth. His steering correction microscopic. Australia 2013 showed it best. The Lotus wasn't the fastest car, but it was light on tires, and Kimi made it dance from lap 1. While others tiptoed through cold fronts and degraded rears, he drove like every lap was qualifying. By the final stint, his tires looked fresher than anyone's. It wasn't tire management. It was pure understanding of surface energy. He grew up on ice tracks in Finland, racing karts in freezing temperatures. That environment hardwired him to feel grip at levels others considered impossible. In cold, low-energy conditions, the kind that destroy aggressive drivers, Kimi thrived. He didn't talk much, didn't study telemetry obsessively, didn't explain it. He just did it. His weirdest strength was his ability to make lifeless tires work instantly, turning the most treacherous laps into opportunities. To Kimi, cold rubber wasn't a problem. It was home. Fernando Alonso. You don't overtake Fernando Alonso. You graduate if he lets you. His weirdest strength is defensive driving that looks emotional on track, but is actually calculated to perfection. Alonso doesn't block out of panic. He blocks out of geometry. He knows where the attacking car will be 3 corners in advance and shapes his lines accordingly. Hungary 2021 was a masterclass. Hamilton, in a Mercedes 2 seconds faster per lap, sat behind Alonso's Alpine for 11 laps. Every entry, Alonso parked his car half a car's width offline, just enough to ruin Hamilton's aeroway. Every exit, he angled toward the inside so there'd never be a clean slipstream. It wasn't speed. It was prediction. He did it decades earlier too. Imola 2005 against Schumacher. Monza 2012 against Vettel. Each duel looked desperate, but in slow motion, it's perfect spacing. He deliberately sacrifices mid-corner speed for exit traction, trapping his rival in dirty air. Alonso even uses mirrors like sensors. You'll notice he often flicks his head mid-corner, reading angles while correcting steering. The equivalent of playing chess while tightroping at 300 kilometers per hour. His mind runs laps ahead of the race. He knows not just what move you'll make, but why you'll make it. That's what makes him impossible to pass. Not reflexes, but anticipation engineered into his DNA. Alonso's weirdest strength is the scientific precision behind what looks like pure defiance. He doesn't defend to survive. He defends to teach. Max Verstappen. There's aggression. Then, there's what Max Verstappen does to a car under braking. Most drivers slow down, turn in, then accelerate out. Max turns that entire sequence into one violent, seamless blur. He's still on the brakes while the car rotates, already loading the throttle. His secret isn't late braking, it's how he releases it. The way he bleeds off pressure in the final meter before turn-in is freakishly smooth and fast, letting the front tires bite instantly without losing rear grip. Engineers describe it as unprogrammable. The telemetry entry curve looks like no one else's, a sharp drop where physics should fail, yet somehow the car still sticks. It's most visible in corners like Suzuka's Degner or Jetta's high-speed chicanes. His rear end dances, hovers, never quite steps out. He lives on that invisible edge between grip and loss, like he's balancing on a wire mid-corner. Red Bull engineers built cars around that trait. Ultra-pointy front ends, nervous setups no one else could control. Perez tries it and understeers. Gasly tried and spun. Verstappen thrives. His weirdest strength is the ability to drive beyond the car's window. He doesn't adapt to machinery. The machinery adapts to him. When he says, the front needs to bite harder, what he really means is, give me instability. I'll make it work. That unnatural sensitivity, that fearless trust in rotation, is why Verstappen isn't just fast. He's alien. Charles Leclerc. Over a race distance, Charles Leclerc is talented. Over a single lap, he's possessed. Qualifying brings out something different in him, a raw, unfiltered aggression that lives right on the edge of disaster. He doesn't ease into corners. He attacks them like he's trying to break the limit itself. At circuits like Baku, Monaco, or Silverstone, you can see it. The Ferrari twitching through walls, millimeters from ruin. Onboard footage of his Monaco 2021 and 2022 poles shows a driver who doesn't lift when others would instinctively flinch. The throttle never blinks. The steering flicks are violent but exact. That commitment makes his telemetry insane. Faster minimum speeds than anyone else through the apex, even if it costs him exit stability. He drives qualifying laps that engineers describe as mathematically unsustainable, yet somehow holds them together. What makes it weird isn't the risk, it's his ability to calibrate chaos. Leclerc knows precisely how far he can go before the car snaps. In Monaco 2022, he brushed the wall 3 times in one lap and still improved. In Baku 2023, he took pole with a car that was sliding in every corner. He doesn't build up to the lap, he launches straight into it. It's a switch. Calm Charles disappears. The qualifying animal takes over. Leclerc's weirdest strength isn't just being fast over one lap. It's living in that split-second balance where instinct outruns fear, where every millimeter between the tire and the wall becomes his signature. Nico Rosberg. He was never the rawest talent. He wasn't the flashiest overtaker either, but he had a mind that treated Formula One like a science lab. His weirdest strength? He could learn another driver's greatness by reconstructing it piece by piece. While Hamilton felt speed instinctively, Rosberg studied it like an engineer reverse engineering art. Every braking trace, every corner speed, every steering input. He'd dissect it until he understood why it worked. Then, he'd practice it until his data looked identical. Mercedes insiders still talk about how Rosberg once spent an entire winter memorizing Hamilton's telemetry from just one track, matching throttle releases, steering timing, and brake pressure. By the start of 2016, his inputs looked almost cloned. That's not coincidence. That's obsession turned into simulation. He was the first to walk the track every Thursday with measuring devices, noting bumps and camber shifts. He ran mental rehearsals before sleep, visualizing laps frame by frame like a pianist memorizing sheet music. It wasn't glamorous. It was robotic precision. But when the 2016 season began, the robot beat the artist. Rosberg's control under pressure came from total preparation. He didn't improvise, he executed. And when he finally beat Hamilton to the world title, he retired days later, drained but satisfied. He had achieved something almost impossible. He built a personality designed purely to win one specific battle. His weirdest strength wasn't speed. It was the discipline to manufacture perfection until even natural talent couldn't overcome it. Sergio Perez. Every driver manages tires. Perez performs miracles. He doesn't drive to preserve them. He breathes with them. From his Sauber days to his Red Bull era, Checo has always had one talent that doesn't make sense. Tires that die for everyone else somehow last for him. In races like Monaco 2022 or Sakir 2020, his calm patience transformed strategy itself. Where others burned rubber by pushing, Perez built heat gently, sliding just enough to maintain temperature without blistering. He never shocks the carcass. He whispers to it. Telemetry shows it clearly. Checo's steering input is never violent. He layers the corner, gently loading each phase, entry, mid, exit, in 3 waves. That spreads the stress evenly across the tire surface. The result? He can extend a set of mediums 10 laps longer than anyone else while still matching their lap times. His brake and turn synchronization is another anomaly. He starts rotation earlier, but finishes later, stretching every millisecond of grip. On street circuits, where tire life decides everything, this becomes gold. Engineers say he doesn't just preserve tires, he reshapes them through rhythm. The weirdest part? He isn't slow doing it. In Monaco, he proved he could manage and attack simultaneously, controlling pace like a puppeteer, while rivals fell apart behind him. Sergio Perez's weirdest strength isn't saving tires, it's manipulating their psychology, knowing exactly how much pain they can take before they scream back. Nigel Mansell, he didn't drive cars, he attacked them. Every steering input was violence disguised as precision. He was a physical driver in an era of mechanical sensitivity, yet his aggression produced something paradoxical. It actually made the car faster. His 1992 Williams FW14B was a technological masterpiece, filled with active suspension and downforce control systems. Most drivers approached it delicately to preserve tire life. Mansell did the opposite. He bullied it, and somehow the car responded. His technique of brute loading the tires on entry created faster warm-up cycles than anyone else. On cold days or formation laps, while others weaved and braked to raise temperature, Mansell simply drove harder. The sidewalls flexed, the rubber bit down, and grip came to him faster than it did for anyone else. It's why he was unstoppable in qualifying. He'd go out, hammer 2 laps, and set pole while others were still warming up. The FW14B loved that aggression. Its electronics stabilized what would have been uncontrollable in lesser cars. In races, his relentless style often shredded tires earlier, but his ability to extract peak pace immediately made up for it. It's a style that would fail in modern F1, but in his time, it made him a weapon. Mansell's weirdest strength wasn't technique, it was willpower, translated into mechanical violence. He drove like a man wrestling grip out of asphalt, and the car, somehow, loved him for it. Damon Hill, he didn't have his father's flair or Senna's genius, but in the rain, he moved like music. Where other drivers fought wet conditions with aggression, Hill found rhythm. Every corner, every throttle lift, every steering correction flowed like a metronome, smooth, timed, and eerily consistent. At Suzuka 1994, he defeated Schumacher in a storm that looked undrivable. At Spa 1998, amidst a demolition derby of spinning cars and crashes, he stayed upright and led home a Jordan 1-2, reading the rain like sheet music. His secret wasn't risk, it was pacing. Hill's throttle application in wet races was a masterclass in modulation. He'd time the power delivery perfectly to match the water layer thinning across the line. Engineers later found his throttle trace looked like a sine wave. No sharp spikes, no drops, just perfect flow. Even rivals admitted he was weirdly serene in chaos. The wetter it got, the calmer he became. His visual rhythm, constantly checking mirror reflections for track sheen, gave him information no sensor could match. He'd drive 1 gear higher than anyone else, smoothing torque and extending tire life naturally. Damon Hill's weirdest strength wasn't speed or aggression, it was musicality. He drove wet races like a symphony, patient, harmonic, and unshakably precise. When rain turned every race into roulette, Hill made it feel like choreography. Romain Grosjean. His early career was chaos incarnate. Crashes, collisions, and penalties piled up so fast that he was almost banned in 2012. But hidden underneath that volatility was one of the strangest and most exciting strengths in Formula One: raw, explosive aggression at lights out. On lap 1, Grosjean could do things that defied physics. He'd launch from mid-pack and find gaps that didn't exist a second earlier. The telemetry showed how he had hyper-fast steering inputs in traffic, sharper than anyone in close quarters. His Lotus engineers called him the scalpel. Every turn-in was a high-risk gamble that somehow worked 9 times out of 10. When it didn't, it was spectacular disaster. In 2013, at the Indian Grand Prix, Grosjean started 17th and finished on the podium, third by the flag, after slicing through the field with fearless opening laps that bordered on chaos. His spatial awareness under chaos was absurd, almost animalistic. He seemed to sense which car would move where before it happened, carving through pack turbulence like it wasn't even there. His start line crashes often came from that same instinct, overloading itself. Grosjean's weirdest strength, hyper-aggression, was both his greatest weapon and his greatest curse. By the time he reached Haas, the chaos had softened, but the reflexes never left. Even in IndyCar, Grosjean's lap 1 moves shocked commentators. It's rare to see a driver who's both predator and victim of his own speed. Grosjean was exactly that, a first-lap assassin who lived one heartbeat away from brilliance or destruction. Valtteri Bottas. He isn't the flashiest driver. He doesn't dominate races like Verstappen or slice through rain like Button. human. But there's one part of a race weekend where he's inhuman: the start. He reacts faster than anyone on the grid, period. At Mercedes, engineers ran reaction time simulations for all their drivers. Bottas consistently registered starts so quick they bordered on the edge of a jump start. Reaction times near 0.20 seconds, the physical limit before sensors would penalize false movement. Yet every time, he was clean. It's not luck. Bottas has a neurological gift, near-perfect clutch modulation, and a pre-programmed muscle memory that triggers like lightning. Where others overthink the lights, Bottas feels them. Look at Austria 2020. Cameras caught his car twitching microscopically right before the lights went out. Stewards reviewed it for hours. Verdict: still legal. That's how fine the margin was. He anticipated without guessing. The same in Sochi 2017 and Japan 2019. Flawless launches that left Hamilton stunned despite identical machinery. He trained that instinct in his karting days, focusing on clutch feel rather than reaction sight. His feet and hands were conditioned to sync subconsciously. The brain never interfered. That's why he often looks calm, almost too calm, before lights out. Inside that stillness is a brain running hundreds of micro calculations per second. His weirdest strength isn't speed over a lap. It's the unnatural ability to explode from stillness to perfection in the blink of an eye. A skill so specific, it can't be taught, only wired. Lando Norris. He was born in the sim era, where precision wasn't practiced on asphalt, but coded into muscle memory. He didn't spend his teenage years in dusty karting paddocks tuning carburetors. He spent them inside virtual circuits where every pixel mattered. That upbringing shaped something rare, a driver whose brain processes racing like real-time data. At McLaren, engineers were astonished by how specific his feedback was. He wouldn't say, "rear's going off." He'd say, "the fronts are dropping by around 7% over 10 laps." Data confirmed it, within 1%. No one had ever seen a driver feel degradation like that. His reflexes mimic a gamer's. Ultra-fast hand-to-eye coordination, micro-corrections every fraction of a second. But unlike many simulator specialists, Norris translated it perfectly into reality. In wet races, his steering rhythm mirrors virtual control. Constant, but never panicked. Every twitch is measured, every slide caught before it even happens. It's why his rain performances in Imola, Sochi, and Spa stunned veterans. His timing on throttle and brake isn't emotional, it's algorithmic. He sees grip like geometry, visualizing corners as three-dimensional spaces with layers of potential traction. What seems weird to others, his hyper-digital awareness, is what makes him lethal in today's F1. Norris drives like a computer that feels pain, yet never panics. The line between simulator and track doesn't exist for him. It's one continuous system, one that processes chaos with frightening accuracy.